What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the Rolling Times today. We have Justin's 2016 Chevy 2500 HD. This is the 6.0 gas, but if you have the diesel, it's going to be a very similar process. What we're doing today, we're going to be replacing the rear brakes, new pads, new e-brake shoes. We're actually going to be removing the rear hubs, replacing the bearings and the seals, and then doing a diff service as well. If you're just doing the rear rotors and brake pads, you probably don't have to do all this extra stuff, but if the e-brake shoes fall apart when you take the rear rotors off, which is pretty common on these trucks, maybe not as much on these newer trucks, but I have seen it happen. In order to replace those e-brake shoes, it's a lot easier to do that if you remove the whole hub, and if you have it off for as cheap as the bearings and the seals are, well, the seal's probably going to get damaged when you take it off, but it just makes sense to go ahead and replace the bearings. This truck's right around 100,000 miles, so after this service, the whole rear end of his truck's going to be good to go for probably another 100K.
Oh, I didn't see you there. What the hell happened to Whistling Diesel anyway? He like hasn't posted a video for a month. Yeah, can you believe he was selling hoodies for $250 in the middle of summer? Like, who would actually buy those? Why are you looking like you're about to laugh?
Because it looks like you're sitting on the ball, but it's not a ball.
Oh my god.
Stand up. Show it's not a ball first. Maybe walk over.
Before we get started here, you will need some special tools. There is a specific GM hub socket. I believe the one needed for this truck is the 6.1, but until I get it apart, I'm not 100% sure. I could not find hardly any info on any of these newer trucks like 2013 and up. It's going to be very similar to older trucks, but I really wanted to make this video because I can't find any info on these trucks. If it's a 2500 gas, it should be a 10.5-inch rear. If it's the diesel, it's going to be the 11.5-inch rear, but the procedure and everything's going to be pretty much the same.
The first thing we're going to do, since we are doing a diff service and replacing all the diff fluid, is you want to find your fill. This is the fill plug. You always want to take that out first. Make sure you can get that out, because if you can't get that out for some reason, you won't be able to fill it up with fluid. So make sure you can get that loose before you drain it. And then your drain is going to be on the bottom. You don't necessarily have to remove the drain. You could just remove this whole diff cover, but because we don't want to make a mess, actually we like making messes, we're going to take that drain out, let the fluid drain out of here, then we're going to remove this cover. If you are just doing the brakes or the hubs and not doing the diff service, again, you don't have to do this. You will lose a little bit of fluid when you do when you take the hubs off and the axles out, but you can just top it off if you don't want to replace the fluid, but kind of makes sense just to replace it. All right, so we did get the fill port cracked loose, and this is just a regular 3/8 driver. You can put the extension right in there. Also, you might want to wear gloves. This stuff really stinks and it doesn't get off you. Engine oil is one thing, but gear oil, you'll smell that for a week. Yeah, that stuff's pretty black. It was definitely good that we're changing it. Not seeing any metal in it. While that's draining, we're going to go ahead and remove our wheels now with the Ryobi that I haven't charged for like 3 jobs.
Thank you, Dad.
Thanks, Tom.
I think it's my favorite tool in your tool bag.
This is probably one of the best Christmas presents ever. Jeez.
Kick it. Hasn't been off for 100,000 miles.
Probably not. I'm gonna go pop the other side off quick just to keep things simple and make sure this video is not like 6 hours long and you still watch it till then. I'm just gonna film the one side, but the other side is gonna be exactly the same. So we're gonna remove the brake caliper. First, we're going to compress it a little bit. You just grab a flathead screwdriver, and if you're able to, you can actually compress it all the way. It'll save you a step later. You don't have to compress it with the caliper compressor tool or a C-clamp. And then the next step, I find it easiest just to remove this at the bracket. This is a 21mm bolt. You might be able to get a ratchet and socket in there, short socket, but since there's not a whole lot of room, I usually just use a wrench. Jeez.
Told you, 100,000.
Plan B, since Chevy uses the freaking strongest Loctite known to man on their brake caliper bolts, just grab the old breaker bar out. Should be able to just fit it in there with a shallow 1/2-inch socket. Alright, you have your caliper off. You want to set it somewhere so it doesn't hang by the hose. Next thing we want to do is pull this rotor off. If it's from factory, it probably has these little clips. You can see in an earlier video, me and Brandy fighting each other to get them off of there. Usually I just take the side cutters and kind of cut them or yank them off. You don't need to replace them or reuse them. That kind of sounds like those e-brake shoes are falling apart.
Give it a good smack.
I can't. I have no room. I need a f***ing shop.
All it took was laying down.
If for some reason you're tearing all this stuff apart and you're going to reuse these rotors, you probably don't want to hit on the braking surface. If you smack it right here enough, it'll eventually come loose. You just don't want to hit these studs. They also have threads here where you can thread, if you find the right size bolt, you can thread bolts in. That'll help pull off the rotor. Wow. Yeah, the brake shoes are starting to fall apart, but usually they just come out in pieces, so they're a little better than I thought. Curious to see what these brakes look like. That was the inside pad there, probably about 2-30 seconds. The pad material is starting to separate from the back side of the pad. It had some nasty grooves in it too from these rust slips on the rotor. Outside pad looks a little better. It's probably like 4 or 5 30 seconds. That would be plenty enough to pass inspection. That might even last you a year. Problem is they were wearing uneven. That inside one wasn't going to last much longer. You can pop your caliper bracket off the caliper now. We'll come back later and swap out that hardware and grease and clean up our slide pins. Next thing we're going to do is remove all these bolts holding the axle in. I'm going to use this electric impact. Hopefully it's going to do the job and get them off there. If you don't have an impact, you might have to get somebody to hold the studs with a pry bar, jack bar, crowbar, whatever kind of bar you got. I would recommend going on the back side so you don't bend the studs or mess up the thread.
Thanks, Tom. We're using another tool provided by you. So.
And my mom.
And Wendy. Thank you, Tom and Wendy, for the big jack bar. Oh no, the jack bar slipped.
One.
Once you get all them bolts out, the axle is going to pop loose. You are going to lose a little bit of fluid, so if you're working in your dad's driveway, maybe put a drip pan down.
Lengthy.
Right. So make sure you're working somewhere where you have room to pull that out, because I can tell you, even if this truck fit in my garage, I wouldn't be able to pull that axle out with it being in the garage. You're gonna first take that cage out, then that's gonna give you access to this little keeper on top here. You're gonna want a magnet to pull that out. I'll have to go find one because I'm not prepared. Maybe I can get it with the flathead. No, that lost its magnetism. So once you have that retainer off, you're going to run to AutoZone and grab the hub socket you need. OEM Tools, part number 27352. It's a big socket with 9 points on it. Before we use that, there is a little keeper. We got our magnet here. It's going to be at the top. You should be able to just turn that off by hand then. If it is tighter than that, it shouldn't be. Hub nut, we'll call it. It's going to be stuck on there pretty good because of the hub seal. So you're just going to take a pry bar and start working it off. It's probably going to damage the seal. So they'd probably make a better tool for this. Maybe if you had a slide hammer that could fit on that hub, it would definitely make it easier to pull it off there. But what I ended up doing was I got the 1/2-inch ratchet in behind there and just started working it like this. And it will fight you for a little bit, but eventually it will come off of there, as you can see. Now that we have our hubs off, we're going to have to go ahead and remove this seal. Under the seal is going to be the inside bearing and the inside race, and then we're going to have to get the outside bearing and race out as well. I'm just going to use a flat chisel here. Once you put a little dent in that seal, you should be able to get a screwdriver behind it and just pop it out of there.
It's moving.
Alright, so there's your seal. That can just get thrown away. Call me old blue glove. It's so hot in this garage right now.
You want to open that door?
I think I'd be cooler if I fucking opened a shop down in Texas. Okay, here's our bearing. We're replacing that. We got a seal or a race in here. This race is going to have to come out. We also have another race And we have our bearing back here. Okay guys, before you go to remove the bearings, you're gonna have to remove this C-clip in here. If you give a couple good taps with the punch first, just going all the way around, and we're gonna try and remove it with some angled needle nose. Gear oil in the fucking mouth tastes great. I modified the needle nose pliers. That grabs that snap ring a hell of a lot better. Just figured out that before I can take that snap ring completely out, I actually got to remove the inside race first. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. If you look straight through here, it's probably hard to see on the GoPro. You can see my finger here on the other side. You're gonna want to go around this whole race here with the punch until you can get it out. Brandy wasn't ready with the camera, but now you can get the snap ring out. Then we gotta flip this around again, and we'll be able to smack out that inner bearing and race. Or outer, that's the outer. I keep getting confused because it's not on the truck. There's your outside race, your outside bearing. Now we can clean this up really good, install the races in reverse order, and the bearings. This is the first bearing we're going to put in. This would be the outer bearing on the hub and race. GM part numbers there. That is for the 2500 gas. I believe the diesel uses a different size bearing because it has a 11-inch instead of 10-inch rear. Before we put this bearing in, we're just going to pre-lube it with a little bit of gear oil. We're going to take our bearing, it's a little much, just pre-lubricated a bit. These don't get greased like a wheel bearing, they just use the gear oil. That's gonna go in there first.
Ew. The smell that makes me want to.
Yeah, it doesn't smell great.
Not at all.
Then your bearing race is gonna get pressed in there with the wider side down. We're just gonna use the old race here to help get the new one started.
Sorry, you're slipping.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why I even bother doing anything. We got that race pressed all the way down in there. We're going to put our snap ring in next. Once you get the snap ring in there, if you're having trouble getting it down there, once you get it compressed and most of the way in there, you can just take a screwdriver or something to help push the other side down, and then it should snap right into where it goes. We're going to want to flip this around. So if you look in here, you'll have your bearing here, and you'll have these 4 half circles. You can get the small punch in there so it's not on the bearing and it's just hitting back on the race. And then once you have that race set against that snap ring, you should be able to move the bearing freely in there. So up next is the inner bearing and race. That's going to be the bigger of the two. Here's the GM part number for the 10.5 inch rear. So your inside one's going to go like this, with this part towards the outside, this part towards the inside. Our old race is starting to stick in there a little bit. We don't want to get that stuck in there, so we're gonna finish putting this the rest of the way in with the punch. This is what your race will look like once it's seated all the way down. You'll see a little blip here, and then it should be, there's a ridge in here that it sets against, so you'll know once it's all the way seated. Then we can go ahead and install our bearing and seal. Again, lube this guy up without spilling the gear oil everywhere this time. Set that in the hub like that. Now we can go ahead and get our new seal. Make sure that's flush all the way around, and there you go. Okay guys, before we install that new hub, we're gonna replace the e-brake shoes. We got new shoes and new hardware. While we were taking the rotor off, or actually I think when we were trying to get the hub off, we actually already popped out our adjuster here and that lower spring. But what you want to do is these retaining clips, if you just push them in and then push that pin to the opening here, you can slide that clip off. Same thing over here. Just pry the shoes off, and you'll see here at the top on this side you got a spring on the inside, spring on the outside, and I would say assemble those first. When you go to put the new ones on, then you'll put this around, get your pins and retaining springs, and then your lower spring and adjuster. Just like any brake shoe job, we're going to want to clean up this backing plate, get the rust off of it, and then grease it up. Clean off this ABS sensor here, any metal or rust that, or dirt that's on it, clean that up. You don't have any issues with the ABS. Get any dust off this axle tube.
And you grease it up where your pads sit.
Yep, the 6 little nubs that the shoe rests on. And I also grease this. That's the actuator when you pull the e-brake that spreads the shoes apart. I have the brake shoes laid out here with the hardware, how they're going to go. Before we go to install them, we're going to put these purple springs, one in the front, one we're going to flip it over, put it in the back, and then once we get it on the truck, these pins are going to go through the backing plate. They come up through here like this, like that. And then this style is a little bit different than the factory, but that spring goes on there. You push the spring down, and then you twist this keeper once you have it down past, and that will hold the shoes on. Then we're going to put our adjuster in there, and then our bottom spring. These are probably one of the easier ones to do, especially with that hub out of our way. So I know drum brakes suck, but I think you guys should be able to do this one.
After a little bit of fighting, you should be able to get the shoes clipped in here on this bottom and this top. I don't even know what to call it. I'm so hot and sweaty and tired. But you got to get them behind this bottom piece and kind of clipped in here. They just kind of sit in the grooves there. I do have the adjuster in between there a while. And the next part is these pins. They do make a special tool for these. I prefer to just take a pliers or a vice grip, hold that top cap. We're going to go ahead and push our spring through from the back, or our pin through from the back of the backing plate. Alright, so meanwhile I'm over here bitching and all I did was push it in and twist it with my thumb. We do got to get it twisted a little bit more because it's just barely hanging on there. Can't see shit because it's fucking nighttime. Same thing with the other side. Alright, now we're almost ready to put our hub on. We just want to take a little bit of grease, get it on this spindle here, or gear oil. Don't get it back there where the seal sits. Take our hub nut. What we're doing right now is just pushing that seal all the way back. If you care about your hands, you can use like a rubber mallet or something. Just about all the way. So we're going to torque this to 52 foot-pounds. While we're doing that, you want to just rotate the hub the opposite way. Okay, now you want to back it off a quarter of a turn. Look at that, our keyway is lined up almost. I have to take the keyway, line it up in this top notch again. Then our retainer goes on. That does have a tab that goes in the keyway here. Going to spray some brake clean in a rag, clean up this surface, and then we're also going to clean up the inside of the axle. We're going to have to put some RTV on there. Seal this up. Getting ready to install the axle shaft. There is a gasket here. I scraped the old one off. You can get a new gasket. Most of the parts stores aren't going to have them in stock, so it's going to be a special order part. So you can go ahead and just use some RTV. This RTV is specifically made for gear oil, so that's what we'll be using. And you just don't want to, you want to just put a nice even amount around just where the gasket would normally be. You don't want to use an excessive amount because you don't want this getting in to your bearings or anything. We're just going to snug these up with the gun for now. We'll come back later. They get torqued to 115 foot-pounds for the 10.5. You got the diesel with the 11.5 rear.
you're gonna want to, I believe, 146, but just double check that if you guys have the diesel. Okay, next we're gonna put the rotor on. Before we do that, I did clean up this hub and grease it so the rotor don't stick. And then while we're doing that, there's an adjuster down here for the e-brake shoes. We're gonna want to adjust that out so these shoes are just barely causing a little bit of resistance. That way the e-brake works good. Got the rotor on there. We got our new brake clips installed on our caliper bracket, slide pins greased up. We go ahead and install that on the caliper. We can take our new Power Stop Extreme pads. Alright guys, I do apologize that the rear end was kind of wrapped up short. It just got to the point where I had to stop filming and just get it done. Getting real backed up here. If you guys think I should just quit my job and try and find a shop to rent and go full-time for myself, then drop a like on this video. Basically, the rest of that rear end service was just putting the rear brakes together, which if you're servicing the hubs and everything, you should know how to do the brakes. One important thing, when you're all finished and you top off the fluid and everything, you're going to want to park the truck sideways on both sides, making sure those hubs can fill up with gear oil, and then find a flat surface, pull that fill plug again, and that should be filled till fluid's running out. Once fluid's running out, you can put the fill plug back in, tighten it down. Let it eat!
He had a brake light out.
So anyway guys, we're gonna get started with the tune-up here. I don't even think I'm gonna bother filming much of this. These are pretty self-explanatory on these 5.3s and 6.0s. This is 6.0. You got your coil packs up top. We're not going to be replacing them today because we don't have any misfires. We're just doing a preventive maintenance tune-up. And then you got your plug wire here. You're gonna remove the plug wire and get your spark plug down here. 4 on this side and 4 on the other side. Here's all the old plugs. I'd imagine they're original from the factory. This truck's got about 100K on, and these are AC Delco plugs. They didn't look too bad, but definitely worth changing them at 100K. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. If this video helped you out, please let me know in the comments below so I can continue to keep making videos like this one. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, drop that subscription. We've been trying to stay to weekly uploads Friday at 7. Been a little busy. I'm trying to find a shop here so I can do this full time for me and stop doing it for the man. So I apologize if we're not on that schedule 100%, but I'm trying to. Anyway, take it easy guys.